Hi, and welcome to Business at Tiffany's. I am your host, Tiffany Johnson, and I'm here today with a very good friend of mine, Jay Johnson, no relation. He is an amazing friend who has done so much service in our community and 22 years in the Air Force. Jay, I want to welcome you today and tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to the role that you're in.
Thank you, Tiffany. One, let me just say I really appreciate your thoughtfulness, and I really always enjoy time that I spend with you. You're a thought leader. You're somebody who stretches me, and I just love collaborating with you. But I appreciate you inviting me to spend this time with you. I think what you're doing and the information you're sharing with others is a game changer, and I hope people continue to tune into your podcast because they're gonna learn an awful lot. So yes, Air Force veteran. I grew up in Oklahoma. I didn't join the Air Force right out of high school. In fact, I was in the grocery industry and doing quite well for myself. I was working for a national name brand grocer for a long time, and then they were bought out by a local grocer. But I was a department manager inside of that store at a very young age, 17. I don't know, somewhere around 10 to 12 people working for me. And I must confess to everybody, I didn't have a clue about leadership then, or the right way to supervise and develop people. But I was making really good money. This was in the mid 80s. I mean, I sometimes tell people how much I was making per hour, and they were like, as a 17-year-old. But 2 years into that, Tiffany, I just felt like I needed something to provide me a little more structure, and I was just longing for something else. And I enlisted in the United States Air Force in 1986. I spent 11 years as an enlisted guy. Worked for the best leader that I've ever worked for to this day back in the mid 90s. And she encouraged me to go complete my education. And she did it from the premise of telling me she thought I had more to offer and that I could affect the Air Force as a whole in a very different way if I went and got my commission. So she sold me on a dream I didn't know I had. I got out of the Air Force, left the Air Force completely, went and completed a 2-year program to finish my 4-year undergrad requirements, came back on active duty, and then spent another, a little over 11 years as an officer. But Tiffany, when I retired from active duty Air Force in 2010, I made a really fatal mistake. And I know this may not be the question that you've asked, but I think there's something in here for everyone. I chose to stay comfortable. I could have been anything that I wanted to be as I was retiring from active duty. And what I chose to do was stay comfortable. The government offered an opportunity to stay with them. They dangled a carrot. Great paying job, Monday to Friday only, weekends off, holidays off, good benefits. So it didn't require any real thought from me, and it's what I knew, so I just took it. But about 4 years into that, Tiffany, I found myself supervising a group of analysts and really amazing people cut from the same cloth and values as but I just was woefully unfulfilled. And I began seeking and searching. And in that introspective reflection time, it took me back to a couple years that I had been volunteering in my church. And I was a part of and leading a program called Career Column. It was a career transition assistance program free to anyone in the community. They didn't have to be members of the congregation. It could be anyone in the community in which we served. And we would help people who were unemployed, underemployed, or just looking for more meaning in their life. Mm-hmm. We were teaching, helping them identify their purpose, teaching them interview skills, how to write a resume, how to negotiate salary. And so when I found myself unfulfilled as this government civilian in 2014, that reflection time brought back to the forefront of my mind how much I just thoroughly enjoyed serving others, pouring into them and helping them be their best. And I found a coaching program, not really knowing what coaching was. In fact, I think I had lied to myself, if you want the truth. I went into that saying, I've been coaching people for 20 years, only to learn that I hadn't been coaching at all. I had been mentoring, and there is a difference. So 2014, I got certified as a coach. I began motivationally speaking. I stood up my own business in early 2015. And in the summer of 2015, I walked away from that government job, and I've never looked back. And there were a lot of people who didn't believe in me. They thought I was making a horrible decision, Tiffany. In fact, they said, "You'll be back, Jay." Talking about government service, "You'll be back." And I remember looking at one friend in particular, looking him in the eye and saying, "I promise you I won't." And in what allowed me to do this, Tiffany, if there's any goodness in what I'm about to say for listeners, I hope they'll take it to heart. I followed the Cortez model, is what I tell people. It's rumored that Cortez, when he arrived in the New World, turned to his men and said, "Scuttle the ships," meaning set them ablaze, sink them. And he said to them, "There's no going back. There's only one way, and that's forward." So when I made the decision to stand up a business and chart a new path for my life, I wasn't going to straddle a fence. And so I've been doing this now for the last 5+ years, and things are really happening for me. And it hasn't been easy, but it's so rewarding and fulfilling. And I probably gave you way more than you were looking for.
No, that's amazing. I love that. And I love that you had the courage to step out there and say, I'm not going back. I'm going to follow my dreams and I'm going to make things happen. And who are the people that you serve?
That's a great question, and look, I think it's a really important question for most people. If you're not careful in business, you can find yourself oscillating uh, all over the place, and it can be a distraction, and you may not ever really grow the root system that you need. But Tiffany, I do literally serve small business all the way up to Fortune 100. Now, I love people who have an entrepreneurial spirit. So there's just something that I really thoroughly enjoy with serving entrepreneurs. And to be honest with you, I'm asked often, "Jay, did you know your whole life you wanted to be an entrepreneur?" And the answer to that is no. In 2014, in the midst of just feeling unfulfilled in that government job, one day I just woke up with an entrepreneurial bone. I would tell everybody up to that point I never once had considered, going into business for myself. So the people I serve, I like small business. Listen here, to ask me that question is really this: the people I serve are those that are really serious about growth and change. I try my best on the front end to be very discerning in the discovery process when they've come to me to say, "Hey, we would like to hire you," or "We're interested in talking to you about." I hopefully ask the right questions that glean out their true level of commitment. I don't enjoy working with people who aren't committed. I really don't want my time wasted, and I don't want to waste their time. Mm-hmm. I'm happy to refer them to someone else that I believe can serve them, but I want to work with people who are hungry, who have a vision, and they just need somebody to come in and help them be a thinking partner, provide accountability, and then to equip and develop the skills in them and their team to go out and be successful.
Absolutely. And what services do you offer? And your business is J2 Servant Leadership. You're located in Cibolo, Texas. So what kind of services do you offer in your business?
Thanks, Tiffany, for asking. And if you don't mind me saying, obviously you've introduced me stepping into this, and so Jay Johnson. But my business, J2 Servant Leadership, the J2 does not stand for Jay Johnson, and it's a military, nomenclature, I guess, or identifier. In the Air Force, in the Army, in the Navy, and the Marines, we tend to have sales, CELLS, sales of what's the word I want to use, of information or operation. And so in the Air Force, A1 generally designates human resources. In the Army, S1 is human resources. In the Air Force, A2 is intelligence. And in the Army, S2 is intelligence. And the Navy and the Marines have something very similar. And so when we're operating independently in one of those core functions, you may fall under one of those designators. But when we come together as services in similar sales, CELLS again, now that A designator or S designator changes to a J. So J2 is intended to mean joint intelligent servant leadership. I really believe,
I
Tiffany, this
love
is why
that.
I enjoy collaborating with you so much. I think where two minds come together in the intent of Napoleon Hill, as he stated it in his book Think and Grow Rich, where two minds come together, it actually forms a super mind, a third mind, because we're linking our intelligence together, and it makes it more, it has more energy and power to it. He referred to that super mind as a master mind, and so that's the business kind of title. But I coach, I motivationally speak, I train, I certainly do consulting, and at things like strategic planning. If I was to give you and the listeners of the podcast an overview of the portfolio, it looks like this. I probably spend 60% of my time leading retreats and workshops and inside companies doing training. 30% of my time motivationally speaking at conferences and again retreats and seminars and any of those kinds of activities, and then probably 10% of my time coaching. I love coaching, Tiffany. I love coaching, but I only generally carry about 5 coaching clients at any one time. I find that allows me to be my best and give them my best. Any more than that, it starts to become a little too much for me. So those 5 that I carry, these are ones that I've screened and made sure that they're serious. But motivationally speaking is really what fulfills me more than anything else. I love stepping in a room and lighting people on fire, helping them get in touch again with something that maybe has been hidden away and buried that they've wanted to do or that they needed to be reminded of. The downside to motivation is, they can borrow it from someone else, but it's short-lived. So if I can get in and motivationally speak to a group and then get them to engage me in a longer, more detailed and established process, like a training program, or a commitment to a lengthy coaching contract where I can truly help work through their belief systems, I really enjoy that.
That is wonderful. What a great service. And for the listeners, just to let you guys know, I am also a business and leadership coach, speaker, and trainer. So why would I bring on the competition, right? So one of the things is that it's not really all about competition. It can be about working with competition. And one of the great benefits of small businesses is the opportunity to have co-opetition. And that's where 2 small businesses come together. They share the risk financially, intellectually, they can collaborate, but they can also use opportunities to expand their business and also expand their networks. So for you listeners, just to let you know, Jay has brought me on to be a part of what's called Live to Lead. It's an annual event that is put on in the New Braunfels area. And it is an amazing opportunity. So Jay, what made you want to begin this relationship and this partnership in a co-opetition? And what are the benefits that you see? And also, what are the drawbacks?
Thanks, Tiffany. I think this is really, really critically important for everyone to hear. I love that you've asked that question, Tiffany, and I love that you're modeling what we're about to talk about right now for others, because I do think that the benefits far outweigh the risks. So, first, I think I have to just be transparent. I will be that way with you anyways. That's who I am. If something, touches my heart, people are going to know. If something hurts me, they're generally going to know. I'm just a pretty open guy. But when it comes to cooperation, I love that word, Tiffany, by the way. I think I'm going to have to borrow that and I'll credit it back to you. But I love, 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 what'd you say? Or co-opetition, I think.
Co-opetition. It's
Yeah.
actually not my word. I borrowed it as well.
Fair enough, but I'll give credit to you at least the first time I use it because I learned it from you.
That works.
Yeah, so listen, number one, I think I recognize that there are things I do really well. I know what my giftings are, and there are things I don't do well. And by collaborating with a like-minded person with similar values in the spirit of cooperation from a place of coopetition, maybe, we can mitigate those gaps, and what we can pull and put together becomes, again, back to Napoleon Hill, this really incredibly powerful program or service that will truly transform lives. I really think, Tiffany, knowing you as I know myself, I mean, who among us doesn't like to have the spotlight? You would love to be center stage as much as I love being center stage. And I've
Very
seen
true.
you, Tiffany, I've seen you on stage speaking in front of several hundred, people, and you thrive in that environment. And I love that environment also. I just think coming together, we can deliver such a more well-rounded product to anyone we're serving. But here's the other part of that before I answer the real question that you've asked me. The other part of that, I think, is the reason I don't fear competition is for a couple reasons, Tiffany. Number one, I really do believe there are people out there waiting for us specifically. That there's something, Tiffany, about you, the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the tonality of your voice, your story, your life experience, your journey, that they're going to resonate with. But you know what else is true? I believe there's people out there that are going to have all those same feelings, and they're waiting for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to operate, Tiffany, from an abundant mindset. I'm human. I would be lying to you and any of your listeners if I said I don't occasionally fall into a lack mindset where maybe in a moment of looking at someone as competition that I feel a little threatened in some way. But we're not in competition with others. We're in competition with ourselves. When we get really good at what we do, when we know who we are and what it is we bring to the world, if we will just stay in that sweet spot, we will continue to have more business than probably we have the capability to really take on. So, Tiffany, the reason that I've reached out to you in the past and others, and the reason I promote others, like you're given an opportunity for your audience to hear from me today, again, someone operating in the same industry as you, I do it routinely because it helps me fight the lack mindset, the scarcity mindset. The more that I promote others, it actually frees me of those thoughts of competition. And what I have found is most people don't operate this way. And when people see someone doing this, what you're doing, or when I bring others in and promote others, I think it actually draws them to us. I think most people really don't appreciate those that are looking to cut someone out or to try to get by on them or to badmouth them or to give them bad press or publicity. I mean, we've got to be good at what we do. But the reason I do it, Tiffany, is it truly is not about us. When we can shine the light on others, I think what happens is the law of reciprocity kicks in. And the law of reciprocity, everybody, just simply states that when you do for others and you do for others and you do for others, they can't help but think of you and want to do for you, and they want to reciprocate in kind to help you. So, Zig Ziglar, Tiffany, you and I have talked about this before. Zig Ziglar is famous for saying you can have anything in life you want as long as you're willing to help enough other people get what they want. And so when we really truly can do that without keeping score, and that's not easy, Tiffany. It's not easy. Like, I could do for, let's say, a guy named John. Man, I've done this for John and that for John and this for John. And he's never once thought of me. You just can't get into the keeping score thing. Just keep serving. And so even in this COVID-19 environment, I will tell you that by me promoting others, I've had far more come back to me, and I just really believe that it's because of the law of reciprocity. So there's some benefits. I think we're better together. I often use this proverb too, and I know I'm talking on and on, but I hope I'm still in the sweet spot of answering the question you posed. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go as a team. And I really think that many hands make light work. And the more that we can come together and work together and highlight and promote one another and appreciate each individual's uniqueness that comes into the team, I think that that benefits the world in a great way. The risk, just to close this up, you asked me what are the drawbacks. Listen, I've partnered in the past too quickly, Tiffany. I've had a few occasions in my past where somebody invited me to join them in some effort, or I invited someone to join me in some effort, and we really hadn't built a relationship on trust. And I think trust is the foundation to anything you're going to do. And I think, Tiffany, if it's just you and I going out to do something where there's not money involved, I think it's real easy to get along. What I found is when money comes into the equation for people who are business minded, problems emerge that you just wouldn't think would ever be there. So the potential risks are you may enter into one too quickly. You may find that the other person doesn't have shared the same values as you. They may not operate in the same kind of ethical way that you may desire to operate, and it can become messy. So I generally say to anyone, take the time to form the relationship up front, set expectations, and codify. I don't always do that, but there have been times that it has saved me by having something drawn up in writing that says these are the agreements we're making as we cooperate or what's that? Coopetition together. Okay, I'll stop there. I'm giving you a lot.
No, I love it. I love it. That is such great advice too. You know, a lot of people go in and they have this trust. It's like an automatic trust. And sometimes it's a vulnerable trust because they're going into this relationship thinking everything's going to be perfect and, you know, all roses and sunlight. But like you said, I mean, things happen. People have different values. They have different work ethics. There are so many things that could go wrong. So by drawing up, you know, a document just saying these are the expectations, these are our boundaries, this is what we expect from each other, and making it a mutual collaboration will definitely help that relationship. But there are definitely pluses, and just be cautious. If you're going to go into a coopetition with someone, just make sure that you have those boundaries set up and also have it drawn up to where everybody knows what the expectations are. And
can I say something else there, Tiffany, real quick?
You bet.
I also operate from a place of noble intent. And I think this is really important too. I really, in my heart of hearts, Tiffany, don't believe that the majority are out there trying to harm us or put us at a disadvantage. There are people who clearly operate with the attention solely focused on their wants. But I think those are the few and far between. The challenge is if you're not careful, you'll find one of them and it can significantly impact you and hurt you potentially financially and from, you know, a business standpoint. But I really find that most people are willing to work together. It's just still prudent that you make sure you really lay out expectations and get to a common place of understanding.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. And going into the Coopetition, and as I mentioned earlier, we put on an annual event called Live to Lead. Can you talk a little bit about what Live to Lead is and what our listeners can expect from it?
Yeah, thanks, Tiffany. Look, I have the pleasure of chairing the committee inside the John Maxwell team, which is a team of 33,000 plus coaches, trainers, and speakers around the world. And inside that team, I have the pleasure of chairing the committee that oversees Live to Lead. And there's about, I guess there's 5 of us total that are on that committee. And so Live to Lead, everybody, if you've ever attended what we would generally refer to as a simulcast event, it's held live in Atlanta, Georgia, every October, usually the second Friday of October. It is John Maxwell's program. John Maxwell, for those that don't know him, and I still find more people don't know him than do, and I think that's a plus, by the way. Tiffany and I are both a part of that team in addition to our individual businesses. But John is widely regarded as the world's #1 leadership guru. He's now written more books, over 100 books on the subject of leadership than anyone in history. So it's John's program, and John will bring thought leaders together from across industries, and he will simulcast that out to the world. And coaches within the team, only within the team, by the way, have the ability to buy licenses to bring that video feed into their community and help equip people. I mean, these thought leaders are amazing. Over the course of the last 6 years, we've had people like Simon Sinek and Liz Wiseman and Daniel Pink, Chris Hogan and Tyler Perry, Deborah Searle, and we already know who the speakers are going to be this year. Another one was just released yesterday, by the way. So we now know 4 of the speakers, and these are really incredible leaders. And so we're really excited about this year's. But it's a half-day event, Tiffany. We usually here locally will have people in the room from all 7 levels of influence. We'll have banking professionals, education professionals, government professionals, public service professionals in the room, and students oftentimes. And that half-day event, it starts early in the morning for us in Central Time Zone. It'll kick off about 8. It'll wrap up about 11:45 as far as the simulcast goes. But they're going to get to hear from John Maxwell and these other thought leaders to help grow their leadership and equip them with some kind of tools they can immediately apply in their lives. Now, we don't end our site, right? The one that you and I happen to collaborate together on. We do so much more locally at our site after the simulcast ends. But that's what Live to Lead is in premise. I first was exposed to it, Tiffany, when it was under another name. And under its old name, it was called LeaderCast. And LeaderCast is still out there today under a different format. And I would argue that John got it right. I don't mean to knock anyone who is a huge fan of LeaderCast. I think John got it right, though, when he structured the simulcast portion of his event, Live to Lead, to be a half day for the thought leader piece of it. But LeaderCast, John used to be the primary spokesperson for, and Chick-fil-A was the prime sponsor for, and John has been Chick-fil-A's coach for many, many years. Truett and Dan Cathy. Truett Cathy passed away, but John back in 2004, I guess, made the decision to break away from LeaderCast and stand up his own event, one that he had more control over. And he felt like the simulcast portion of it being a half day was ideal. And I think he hit that part on the head.
Awesome. And it's going to be in October in New Braunfels. What date and how can our listeners start purchasing tickets?
Yeah, really good. So, we're choosing not to host this year on the live day, meaning the day that the events happen in Atlanta and being broadcast out. We've already secured our license, and, we're operating in a very specific area. And I think the John Maxwell company, not the team, the company who the program falls under, does a pretty good job of trying to make sure that we don't oversaturate a market. So we've got our kind of defined area we operate in. This year, we're doing our event on October 23rd, and it gives us a lot of latitude. The actual event is happening on the, I think the 9th. I believe that's right, October 9th. But our event will be on the 23rd. And so what will happen is about a week after the live event's been held, we get authorization to download the recording. And so we'll carry it into our venue on a terabyte drive and plug it in. And we have a little more control over when we start it, when we stop it, how we engage the people in the room. If we want to stop it after every speaker and have dialogue around something they've teed up and brought in, we can. But that's the way we've got it laid out this year. We do have a website. It's www.livetoleadnewbraunfels.com. As I say that to everybody, I will tell you that we're in the process of converting it still from last year's event to this year. So those speakers that we just found out who they are, and there's still a couple more coming. I think at least one more for sure, but probably two more. We're still in the process of getting their bios loaded and dates changed over and venue updated. But that site will be live within about the next 2 weeks. By the first part of June, you can go out to www.livetoleadnewbraunfels.com and secure your ticket to be in the room. And don't let COVID-19 scare you off. I promise you, this event's going on. And we have a lot of different ways that we're going to be able to deliver it should there be some restrictions placed on us with numbers in the room, etc. But I'm glad you asked that, Tiff.
Wonderful. And then I'm going to put the website in the description as well, just in case some of the listeners didn't get a chance to write it down. So it will be in the description, and that way they can go ahead and click on that, find out more about the Live to Lead, and start purchasing their tickets. It is a wonderful event, and let me tell you this a little bit. Several years ago, I hadn't realized that I had seen Jay on stage, so I didn't even realize it. It was such an amazing event. My company paid for us to go. We experienced this amazing event of speakers. Simon Sinek was actually one of the speakers at the time. And it was just an amazing experience. I left there with so much motivation, inspiration, knowledge of being a leader, how to be a better leader, and finding my why. And there was just so much to it. And then several years later, a mutual friend of ours connects us. And then I was able to put the pieces together. But that experience, I remember that experience from several years ago. So it is just an amazing event that is put on annually. And I encourage anyone, and even if you've already gone before, definitely show up every year, because there's so much information that will impact your leadership, impact your business, and you get the opportunity to network with other successful leaders in the room. Last year, how many did we have? Oh, 250?
Yeah, we landed around 263 last year. I think the biggest event that we've held, and it's usually constricted more by room size, not because we're putting a cap on it per se. The biggest one we held, I think we topped that at around 330, and the fire marshals, I think, were giving us a scowl, making sure we were in compliance, and we were probably literally busting at the seams for that one.
Yeah, it's such a great experience. So if you haven't been, be sure to buy your tickets for October. If you've gone before, be sure to buy your tickets for October, because we would love to see you there. And as we mentioned, this is all about coopetition. So even if you see somebody there that is in the same industry, talk to them, collaborate, and see if you would be willing to join a partnership. And again, be mindful of the pros and the cons, and prepare those boundaries and expectations. So I'm very excited, Jay. Thank you so much for being here with us today at Business at Tiffany's. You have brought a wealth of information for the listeners, and it's greatly appreciated. And I do have one final question, if you have time.
Of course, always for you.
Awesome. So if you had an opportunity to sit and have a conversation with anyone, whether it be somebody in history or somebody currently, who would that be and why?
Whew, it's such a great question. And I know how I've heard other people answer this question in the past, and there's no wrong answer, right? It's from our individual perspectives. I know a lot of people, say, for those that may be of similar faith, they may say, to sit with Jesus would be pretty incredible. Who could argue with that? They may say a president in the past in history. Who could argue with that? Or Mother Teresa, or Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Who could argue with any one of them? They may even say a parent that has passed, or a grandparent that has passed. I see value in every one of those. But since you've asked, I think I would be really curious and find it incredible to sit and spend a little time with Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison is obviously the one who founded the incandescent light bulb. And it's rumored that he failed like 10,000 times prior to discovering it. But when asked about that, he never viewed any of what other people deemed failures as failures, because he learned so much along the way. And in fact, many other things that he was able to create came from his efforts trying to invent the light bulb as we know it today. And I don't know if you all know this, but he is still the widely regarded as the greatest inventor in American history at a minimum. I think he has over 1,000 different patents still in existence. And he was the individual who created and stood up General Electric. And for those of you that know GE, that's one of the most traded stocks, out there, and it generally performs really, really well. But I think it was his persistence, Tiffany. It was how much he had a vision for what he wanted, and he just persistently stayed at it. And I just feel like there's a lesson in there for me personally, but I think there's a lesson in there for everyone. And I wasn't necessarily a overachieving academic when I was a young man. Junior high and high school, I did the bare minimum. It had nothing to do with my intelligence. I never really applied myself. But Thomas Edison early on was, rumored to be unteachable. People were very frustrated by him, and yet today he's known as the greatest inventor of all time, at least here in the United States. And so I would love just to sit and talk with him about vision casting and persistence and what he drew from that allowed him to just continue to go through that process. He probably had no intention of being known as the greatest inventor, but that's what persistence brings with it. You stay persistent, and you're going to create a legacy in some way for what it is that you accomplish.
I love it. What a great person to have a conversation with. I would love to pick his brain too. Persistence is, oh my gosh, 10,000, 1,000. Those are big numbers, and a lot of people fail or quit, after a couple tries.
That's
so.
Right. I think that's really it, Tiffany. When I'm out speaking, I love to say most people are so quick and ready to assume the defeatist posture. Hands in the air, I surrender, I give up. I just really admire people who don't do that. They keep getting up, keep getting up, keep getting up. And there's a quote, if you'll allow me to share this last one. This is probably an individual I could have said equally as well that fascinates me, but Winston Churchill always fascinates me too. And I remember reading a quote by Churchill probably in the mid-'80s, and it says, "The nose of the bulldog slants to the rear so that it may continue to breathe without letting go." And I don't know what that quote means to each of you as you just heard it. I'll say it again. The nose of the bulldog slants to the rear so that it may continue to breathe without letting go. But when I first read that quote, the only thing that was weighed on my spirit was tenacity. That once you know what you want, you sink your teeth into it, you grab it with both hands, and you don't relent. You don't let go until it succumbs to your will. And I think, again, that ties back to Edison's persistence.
Love it. Thank you again so much, Jay, for being here with us today and for sharing your wealth of information and knowledge. We appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for listening to Business at Tiffany's.